Hello and welcome to AA Beyond Belief, the podcast. I'm your host, John S. Today we'll be speaking with Mikey J from Orlando, Florida, a founding member of our mostly agnostic group of drunks, OMAGOD. Mikey will share his story, talk about some of the challenges his group faced early on, how the group has incorporated online meetings into their schedule, the power of the internet as a recovery tool, and much more. We hope you enjoy the conversation. Well, hello, Mikey. Thanks for joining us. How you doing?
Good. Glad to be here.
Nice to have you. I always enjoy these conversations, and I'm looking forward to talking to you. I always kind of like to start these conversations getting to know the person a little bit. Would you like to just kind of start telling us about your story and how you got into AA and that type of thing?
Sure. My first drug of choice was spinning in front of the yard. I would spin around and around and around and around as a kid, and then I'd fall down, and the whole world would just go blah, 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 blah. And I loved that. I would do that all day long, just spin and spin and spin, because it was that feeling that I liked, and I kind of chased that the rest of my life. I drank early, but I didn't really know it was getting drunk. I had undiagnosed schizoaffective disorder and bipolar, and back then it was just, a weird kid, but I grew up very horribly alone and feeling like I was from another planet, and one day the aliens were going to come and get me and take me home. I got, institutionalized twice before I ever made it into AA. I was in 2 psych hospitals, once at 15 and once at 17. And my first meeting was at the psych hospital, and I kept coming home drunk from pass, and I went to AA because they had cookies and coffee, and we couldn't have that on the unit. So I went over there, and I wasn't hit by the things normally people say, because I was really young, and I immediately felt like I didn't belong. People were talking about their first or second DUIs, and I didn't even have a driver's license yet. But all of a sudden they talked about loneliness and feeling as if you could be completely alone in a crowded room. And I immediately identified with that. I didn't get it right away. I stayed sober for, a year, or not even a year, maybe a couple months, and relapsed and continued to relapse until this last time, in and out. And I never got hit with the God thing. I kind of, which a lot of people have problems with right off the bat, but I was so young, and the groups I happened to go to really didn't emphasize that, and I kind of ignored it. I've never really believed that, so I kind of went, okay, whatever. And I didn't feel any stigma or anything like that right at the beginning, but when I got so bad on not just alcohol, but drugs and sex and every kind of thing you can think of. And I was in my, fifth, sixth institution. I had been Baker acted twice in a week for 2 different things. And there's this part in the book that says he heard the gates of hell slam with a clang. Well, my psychiatrist on my second Baker Act in the institution, he was going to let me go, and he had a witness in there, and I said, where am I going? I figured I was going to a treatment center or something. He says, we're letting you go. You're a sociopath, and there's no recovery for you, and we're not sending you to someone. Anyway, it was horrifically terrible. But my life had been so out of control. I never thought stopping drinking would be an answer. That was just a no-brainer. Of course you drink. Of course you if you had my life, you would drink too. It was the only thing that kept me together, or so I thought. And when I quit drinking, when I had that moment of clarity, and there's a whole story behind that, but I had that moment of clarity where it was like, I'm doing this to myself. and maybe drinking has a part of it, but I became willing to do absolutely anything. And recovery has been an amazing journey. I've got about 14 years now, and I've had all of the ups and downs, and I went through the desert years and all that kind of stuff. And at about 9 years sober, I went to a meeting and I said that I was going to kill myself. And I had bought an exit bag off the internet and was seriously considering it. And that's where I really had to take a look at what AA could do for me. I had been sober, and I kind of worked the steps as a homework assignment. From your sponsor, you run through the steps, and then all of a sudden it's all service and pray every day or whatever.
Yeah.
But when I had that 9 years, I had to really look at what the steps were. And because I didn't believe in God, I had to find out what it was that people did. What was it that kept them sober? I knew there was no, magic, you're sober.
Right.
So I started looking at what the steps meant, and turning my will and my life over to my greater power is the other people that are in the room, but also Google and the law and lawyers and all of that stuff is a power greater than me. And I started listening and taking suggestions again, which is what's got me through in the beginning. And I think that the whole theme of my time in recovery, if I had to pass it on to anybody, would be I had to do things not only that I didn't want to do. My sponsor would make me do things I didn't want to do as practice. Whatever I said, if I said I didn't want to do it, that's what he would focus on, because he goes, you need practice doing shit you don't, doing stuff
that's
you
okay.
don't want to do, because you're going to have to do a lot of stuff in recovery that you absolutely don't want to do, and you have to practice doing it. And the other thing was I had to do things I knew would not work. I knew they wouldn't work, but I did them anyway because I was told to do them. I really put a lot into things that I knew had never worked before. I didn't think they were going to work now, but I did them anyway, and that really changed my recovery. And at that 9-year point, I got that willingness again, and I started to look at meditation, and that has been the answer to a whole new life. In fact, the day I admitted there is no God was the day I had my spiritual awakening. It really was.
That's how I feel too.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
It makes the program practical. It's not a guessing game. Am I doing the right thing? What is the right thing? I started doing the right thing. And, accepting. I think that's what the turn it over means, is that you just accept how it is at that moment. And they say, I'll let it up to God. And I say, well, I'll let it up to chance. Whatever happens, I'm going to deal with it sober.
Yeah.
So,
well, I just feel like, when I accepted that I was an atheist, everything seemed to make more sense and was more beautiful and poetic.
Yeah.
Just the explanation of the universe and how it started, and understanding that it's all the wonderful people in Alcoholics Anonymous that made a difference in my life. It wasn't magic. It was people who cared about other people.
Yeah. For me, it was the sky and trees. All of a sudden, they weren't just poof there. They actually grew out of nothing. And then you start thinking of everything and how amazing this place is, and how much goes into everything. It was an eye-opener. And that's when, like I said, my recovery changed. That psychic change they talk about, that's when it happened.
You hit me right very deeply in my soul here when you started talking about your story. I have a brother who was diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder some time ago, and he's not doing well. He's not an alcoholic, and he once told me that he wished he had something like AA to go to, but I haven't spoken to him for a few years. He's been off his medication, and as far as I know, he's lost in psychosis, and he lives down in Tampa. One of these days I need to take a trip down there to see if we can reach him. But you mentioned something. You said you were the Baker Act. Is that the act where your family puts you in like a 24-hour hold or something like that?
Well, actually, a Baker Act is kind of it's a Florida thing. It's only used in Florida, but kind of everybody says Baker Act. It's an involuntary admission to a a hospital where they evaluate you for up to 72 hours. I thought it was a guaranteed 72, but it's not, because they kicked me out twice at 24 and 48. So, but they look, and what they're trying to do is to make sure you're not lethal. Now, you can Baker Act. You can self-admit, but a Baker Act is when the police basically feel that you're a threat to yourself or another person.
Right. And boy, it's so difficult. We had my brother hospitalized when he was living in Wisconsin. Almost impossible to do. I mean, it wasn't until he jumped in the Mississippi River that we were able to get him into a hospital. Right. And it's just the way it is. But anyway, I didn't want to digress, but I could relate to that. Also, I suffer from mental illness issues along with my recovery, and I get treated for that as well. So, did you do your recovery? Did you start off in Orlando? Is that where you've always been in AA?
No. My first one was in Tampa, actually, and I'll go with you if you ever want to meet your friend or your brother. But I started in Tampa, then I went to Connecticut and New York, and I went to rehab in New York. Arms Acres, if anybody is out there, us. And I went to High Watch Farm, which is has a little AA history, and then came back to Fort Lauderdale to be in a halfway house for 3 years, and then I relapsed, and then I moved to Orlando.
Okay. And you mentioned that when you were first starting out in AA, you really didn't have a problem with the God stuff. It wasn't really hitting you that hard. I don't think it was really hitting me that hard when I was first starting out either.
Well, I think I had come to terms with not believing in God very, very early. I'm a gaytheist. So I've got the gay thing going, and I remember thinking, my parents were very, very Catholic, and we were very involved in the church, which freaks some of my sponsees out when I can, tell them all about that's the adoration sacrifice, and that's the Stations of the Cross. They're like, how do you know that? But I remember them saying that God, said that gay was wrong or something like that. And I was young. I was like maybe 12. And I remember thinking, well, I'm not attracted to women. I didn't choose this. And if God is perfect and the perfect word says that I'm flawed, and he can't be flawed, then that doesn't make sense. I remember my dad told me, my brother got a letter from the Tooth Fairy, and I go, oh my God, Dad, that's your handwriting. And he pulled it aside, and he's like, hey, the Tooth Fairy, Easter Bunny, Santa Claus, that's your mom and I, but God is real. And I looked at him like I was waiting for the punchline. And it never came. I was like, you can't be serious. Don't you see? So I had that coming into AA, and I just ignored it as a child. They'd bring me to church, and I'd, think about whatever, and they'd say pray, and I'd get down and talk to my bedspread. I didn't ever believe that. So coming into AA, I just kind of took it with, okay, this is what it is, but I got to be here, so.
That's so interesting. I almost envy the people that came in knowing they were an atheist when they came in. I don't think I knew what I was or cared what I was. I grew up in a family where there was no religion. We didn't go to church. I was ignorant of religion. And I kind of, I didn't really buy into the God stuff, but I figured, okay, I guess the way I saw it was I'm not capable of being connected to God. I didn't know what it was all. I didn't even know how to do it. But I kind of did what you did. I did the things that they told me to do, and I just figured to myself, I just reasoned to myself, okay, there must be some psychological benefit to praying and all of this kind of stuff. And but then after a while, I just kind of learned the language of AA, and I started talking the talk.
Right.
And whether or not I believed it, I don't know. I don't even know. But eventually, I got to the point where, just a couple of years ago, I realized, I don't believe that any of that supernatural stuff. And that was my spiritual awakening as well.
That's very much my story. And I think I was fortunate not coming in as at not believing in God, because I came to terms with absolutely making it a fact. I don't believe, like I said, late in recovery, basically because I started looking at Reddit and the atheism thing, and it made sense. But before that, it wasn't an issue, so I didn't make it an issue. But now I will sit in meetings, and I'll hear some of the crap that comes out of our literature, and it's offensive. And I've heard that stuff. I mean, I can quote the book. I can say how it works from beginning to end from memory. I've heard it all.
Yeah.
And it never bothered me until they started saying that their way was the only way. And that if you just come around, you'll believe. And I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't I'll come around. It's I came around, and people say, how can you be an atheist? I hate that label, but how can you not believe in God? And I say, well, it's kind of like contempt prior to investigation, isn't it? And that always shuts them up, because that's right out of the book, I'm like,
so how did you get? So how did you get involved with OMAGOD? How did you get involved in Agnostic AA?
I got sick of sitting in meetings, so I started another meeting.
Okay, you started the OMAGOD group?
Yeah. Actually, it was called Group of Drunks, because that's what they always say to people. If you don't believe in God, just believe it's an acronym for Group of Drunks, or Good Orderly Direction. So our meeting was originally called Group of Drunks, but the intergroup wouldn't list it as an agnostic meeting. You know how they have the key, like this is a closed meeting, this is an open meeting, this is a GLBT meeting.
Ours won't list it that way either.
Well, they wouldn't put it in our thing, so I changed the name to Our Mostly Agnostic Group of Drunks, because that would get the word agnostic in there. And I'll tell you, that's the only way that they find us, is they look through the book, the meeting list, and they see the word agnostic, and that's how they get to us. So it was important for us to designate it as an agnostic meeting. And it's funny, for the first, year, they listed us in the meeting list as Group of Drunks, Mostly Agnostic, and we had to constantly change it, because it was bad when it was GOD, because we're like, hey, you're going to God tonight? And that didn't work for us, so now it's OMAGOD.
So do you have people that intentionally seek out your group because it's agnostic?
Oh, yeah. In fact,
we do too.
That's one of the, I hate to use the word blessing, but it's one of the most amazing things about being involved in an agnostic group is you get people that recover that would never walk into an AA meeting. Never.
Yep.
Absolutely. They know it's God and everything. And we've got people that will testify. They will say that being an agnostic group was the start of their recovery. Now, they go to other meetings because you kind of train them how the lingo is, and you get them used to it. And we have something that we do sometimes. It's a recovery expansion project, where as a group, we'll go to another group somewhere. We'll go to another meeting all together, so that we don't feel, and then we can talk about it or whatever. Because one meeting isn't going to do it. You can't stay in one meeting, and that's for everyone in AA. If you stay stagnant in your meeting, then it's a social club. There's a home group, but then you've got to kind of venture out and get other meetings, because you get amazing stuff from people that if you know them, you'll know they're full of shit. But if you listen to them and you hear the message rather than look at who's telling the message, it opens up recovery. So we take as a group, we go out and we discover new meetings, and some of those meetings become their, regular go-to meetings. So that's great. Yeah, it's a cool thing.
That's a really good idea. We have two types of people that come to our meeting. We have the people who would never go to AA until they found out there was a secular AA meeting. And we've got a lot of these people, and they're younger, and they have never, ever been to a traditional meeting. Ugh. I know. And I'm thinking, wow, we should probably take them to a traditional meeting.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're traveling and you need a meeting, if you go in without knowing what a regular meeting is like, you could be like just blindsided with. And there's something to say about keeping the agnostic part private. Unless, for me, this is totally for me. I was very outspoken about it, and then I got a lot of people that would kind of drift away. And now I kind of have changed groups a little, because I go to other meetings all the time, and it's really, they know, but it doesn't become an issue. And if it does become an issue in a meeting, I call my sponsor. I don't have to blah it out to the group.
Okay. Well, that's pretty smart. I was in the program for 25 years, atheist for maybe just the last couple of those years. And I had a really hard time coming out to my group. I felt like I needed to somehow do that. I never did until just recently when I finally told them why I wasn't there for the last year. But anyway, I got increasingly uncomfortable there, and that's when I helped start off this agnostic group. But I don't go to regular meetings anymore because I find I'm just having a hard time there, and maybe that's something I need to work on. And maybe if I do start going to some of those groups, it'll become easier. I agree with you. I think it's important to be part of the broader AA community.
Well, there's a lot of stuff in traditional AA that, I mean, we're all in the same club. We just have one different conception of what our power that's greater than ourself is. When you all come down to it, because we know there is no God, then they're doing the exact same thing. There is no magic person that's working in their life. They're there, but we have to know how we recover. And if you get it just from people that only go to secular AA meetings, you're not getting the full. I always say that our meeting is a complement to your recovery. It isn't your only base. I did that with the gay meetings. I only went to gay meetings. Right. And then when someone would, have attitude or do something controversial or whatever, then I was in a tizzy. I didn't have anywhere to share because it's there.
Right.
So I don't know. It's I like going to other meetings. And I really, honestly, and this is terrible, but when they talk about God, I kind of treat it like children talking about Santa Claus. You don't want to let them in on the joke but you don't want to be disrespectful either. You just kind of nod and, oh, okay. But if they say, how do you pray? No, I don't actually believe any of that stuff. And you can always turn it into recovery. So, and it says,
and most people are really pretty cool too in AA. I've honestly found there might be a few hard asses, but for the most part, people are pretty tolerant of other people's live and let live type thing, I think.
Yeah, that was surprising for me. Some people coming up and actually, very religious people coming up and, sharing coffee with me and not attacking me. I thought they were all going to come out and whatever. But, they've been, and I've had some people come up and say, your conception of your greater power is the same as mine. I haven't come to terms with labeling myself with anything, but I'm kind of more practical. And like I said, it all of a sudden the program started working. I started really looking at character defects. In 6 and 7, I look at what is the character defect? How do I get entirely ready to get rid of it? Is I focus on it. I spend like a week, and every time I'm like selfish, I will chalk up, okay, that's selfishness. And once I recognize it happening, then I can do the opposite in 7. Whatever it is, usually the opposite is what you do. And all of a sudden you start improving. It's like, it's any kind of therapy, any kind of, I think why AA works for those who, they say work it, is because throughout the history of ever, people that have made huge changes in the way they think have been successful. And if you are constantly trying to improve yourself, and if being in traffic and getting cut off pisses you off, then you need to get to the point where it doesn't piss you off anymore. And my sponsor said, well, you have to let the jerk that's coming behind you go in front of you instead of slowing down and trying to teach him a lesson. And once I started doing stuff like that, all of a sudden I'm not angry in traffic anymore. And that's working a program for me.
Yeah. So how long ago did you guys start up that group?
I think we'll have 3 years in March.
Okay.
It's grown. It's breathing like all AA. It's kind of an organism. It's self-cleaning and all that kind of stuff. But it's been, we've had challenges, but it's been an amazing, thing to be a part of.
What kind of challenges did you have?
Well, at first, we had a group of people that I went out and I found people that I thought would be interested. Anyone that's, wasn't saying the Lord's Prayer, I would look around and I'd find that person. And then I would look for those people, and then I kind of got them together and they were all excited about it. But then once the meeting started, they kind of all dropped, except for one person, Dan. Because they didn't want it. It turned into an atheism meeting. You know what I mean? And it kind of, the people that were coming were very militant, this won't work, and I'll tell you why, because of da-da-da. And we really had to focus everything on recovery. What we did was, at first we had like a little disclaimer that we would say, we don't talk about God here, and our higher power. We had this whole reading of how we don't talk about God, or that God is different, but that just brings the topic up. So now the only time we even mention it is when we say, "Welcome to our mostly agnostic group of drunks." And at the end, thank you for joining us with our, whatever. That's the only time we mention it. And then all of a sudden it's about recovery. I mean, people will come in, particularly new people, and share about it. And we talk about it, all the time, but it's not the focus of the meeting.
Absolutely. I tell you, man, I think that's a struggle that all of our groups go through at some point. Our group went through it for a little bit, especially when what would happen? Okay, we would get these people who were angry with AA, and they would come to our group, and it was such a relief for them to be at our group. But boy, they kept talking about how angry they were about their old home group. Mm-hmm. And God, I mean, it was just, you would wonder when these people would ever get over it. But eventually they did, And then we would have those that, that was the main topic for those people, was the God thing. And I guess I can understand it when you're very first starting out with coming to terms with that in your program. I guess you do need to talk about it, but we don't like it for, it's a shame. We wouldn't want that to be what the meeting's all about.
Right. I think that they've got it even worse, because when you get that pissed off at the God thing, you start getting pissed off at people giving you suggestions. And that's kind of what AA is about. It's you'll hear the old school AA, shut up and sit down, you don't know nothing. And then you've got, all this, people, they don't like the God thing, but then they don't like the sponsor thing. They don't like having a sponsor, so they choose not to do that. And then they don't like this whole, at night reviewing my day, and why should I meditate? Right. And all of a sudden nothing works. And the only thing that they really have a problem with is the God thing. The rest of it is your ego. The rest of it is just, I don't want to do this, and I'm not going to. And that's where it gets tripped up. And that's one of the challenges that people have when they come into, not so much anymore, though. I'm thinking about it. At the beginning, we had people that were just adamant, I will not be sponsored by anyone. No one's telling me what to do. But now that we kind of don't have that, it's kind of like the group conscience is like, slow down, Kimo-san. Come on, we're fine. Just join the group here. So
I was happy to see when people started getting sponsors and sponsee relationships, and that's kind of really flourished in our group now, which is nice to see. I like to see that. Yeah,
it really is that 12th step, carrying the message. When you see someone get that message, you just
the group lives outside of the meeting time.
Right, exactly.
So, tell me about. You're the GSR for your group. I'm the GSR for my group. Mm-hmm. Tell me about how you got involved in service work and your feelings about that.
Basically, I've been in various fellowships, and that's one of the things I forgot to mention about our group. It was created by people of different fellowships. It wasn't just AA. It was, and we have a thing. In the beginning, the reason it's an open meeting is because we welcome anyone. And some of us have problems other than alcohol, so that people in any kind of recovery can come. We know the rules, you don't talk about, you say alcohol and all that stuff, but it's been good. I totally forgot the question now.
That's okay, but I'm glad that you brought that up, because I saw that on your website, that was kind of how your group started, from other fellowships coming together.
Yeah.
Okay, people from other groups coming together, but you were starting on that because we were talking about how you got involved in general service.
Oh, yeah, one of the things that I did when I was getting sober, the real first time was when I had 3 years in Fort Lauderdale at a halfway house called St. Francis, which had monk music in the hallways 24 hours a day. We had to go to Vespers. Oh my God, it was kind of cool, but.
I've gone to a retreat at a monastery before where you do all of that.
I like watching that stuff. I just think it's fascinating. But one of the things they do, they push you to, and back then it was Cocaine Anonymous. They push you into service, and it's a great way to get involved. it's not doing anything really for you. It's the first part of the 12th step. But if you don't work the rest of the steps, boy, service can be a real bitch. Because every character defect you have will come out in those business meetings. But I got involved and I swore I would never do it again because it was, I had all kinds of, positions and there's controversy and all this kind of stuff. One time we argued for 20 minutes about whether the cigarette break should be 3 minutes or 5 minutes because the 100 smokers felt discriminated against because it takes longer than 3 minutes to smoke a 100 cigarette and blah, 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 blah. So I was like, never again. But this time coming into recovery, the reason that I do service is to show everyone that an agnostic person can get sober and do service and be a qualified member of Alcoholics Anonymous, regardless of what they believe. It's the reason I push my sponsees into service or anyone in the group to volunteer for things. And we got people doing workshops, and it's because we want them to know that we're from OMAGOD and that we are just a member of AA, just like you are. We're not separate. We're just, our clubhouse, your clubhouse. That's it. And
I totally agree with that. I felt the very same way. It's exactly what I did. When we started our group off, and unfortunately, I think I'm still filling that role as GSR and central office rep, but I thought it was really important that our group be represented and be a good citizen, a good AA citizen, and be known within the AA community. But also, I was listening to people like Joe C., who was really big into service work as an agnostic, and I really learned a lot from him. And he kept talking about, because he really cares about Alcoholics Anonymous, and he talks about, being a good steward of AA. And the more I thought about that, the more I thought, I owe something to this fellowship, and I do want to be a good steward and help guide this fellowship as best I can through the changes that will be coming.
I totally agree. I think the 12th step, that service work, carrying the message, it's not supposed to be fun. My sponsor, or one of my sponsors back in the day, used to say, if you're having fun, it's not service work. But I think one of the things, if I have someone I'm working with and they just hate business meetings, I tell them they need to go to more of them then, because I would rather learn how to deal with difficult people and shrink my ego and be wrong in an AA meeting instead of a courtroom or board meeting. I don't want to have to learn about not being right and being okay with it in where I work. I want to learn that stuff in a place where people are trying to spiritually progress.
Good point.
That's where I get a lot out of business meetings. Boy, I have pissed people off because, especially in my group, I wanted it to go this way, and then once the group formed, all of a sudden it's an actual group, and I don't have any power anymore.
Exactly.
I'm like, wait, I want to make this. No, we can't do that.
Yeah, that scared me. We have business meetings at our group quarterly, and I'm glad that we do. I mean, whether we have anything to talk about or not. But I had the same thing, because when we first started out, I could decide I could do whatever I wanted to do. And there was just two of us,
Right.
And we kind of set it up the way we wanted to set it up. But then we started having this business meeting, and it's the group. It's their group. It's not my group. And they can decide to do whatever they want to do. And I'm just one member of the group. And that's nice, but it was scary to let go and to watch the group just kind of take off on its own like that.
Yeah. It's good for me because I have to let go, and I have a problem letting go of things. And this is great practice. And the nice thing about being in recovery is that I can look at why I got upset. Is it because of fear? Is it because I want my way and someone is telling me I can't have it? So once I recognize that and I do 6 and 7 on it, I come out of it not having resentments. I can actually see other people's point of view, and I can say, this is just the way it is.
Mm-hmm. So what was your what was your perception when you went to your first district meeting? What would you think of all of that?
My first district meeting, it was, I was a world delegate for CMA, so anything that's not that psychotic is really not that big a deal. Business meetings are business meetings, and there are a couple people right at the beginning that didn't were kind of cold to me, which I think they see the agnostic and they already have in their head, because I don't make any I just I don't believe in God. If you want to put a label on me, go ahead. But they think, and for them this is completely true, that you cannot do recovery without God. So when they see someone doing recovery without God, they either are jealous or they start questioning me. Like, oh, he must really not be sober, and he must be miserable. And when they talk to me and get to know me, and they're like, you're really happy and kind of, dealing with your life, then they start changing their mind. But right off the bat, first impressions and everything. And I got that a little, but now, I'm just a schmuck in the business meeting. I'm not the special dude,
Same here. My experience was kind of unusual. I walked into that my first district meeting thinking that they were going to immediately not like me. But what happened is people applauded that I was there. They cheered. They hugged me. One lady actually came over and apologized for saying the Lord's Prayer. I mean, they were just totally accepting of me, and they've been that way ever since. And I'm in the inner city, my group is, and I think the one reason they're so accepting of us is because there's a lot of us are minorities. We have minority groups in our district, and but they tell me, my district committee member, he says, John, AA is all about being inclusive, never exclusive. And they really believe that there. And so I'm like just totally happy at those district meetings, and I love pitching in with them and doing whatever I can do. I really need to do more. It's a matter of finding time to do more for them, but I enjoy that.
Cool. Yeah, it's a wonderful experience to do service.
Yeah. So do you go to the area assemblies?
No.
You don't?
No, I'm a GSR, and there are people more qualified to do that, because I will get, like, I have a thing with, Robert's Rules of Order. If people break Robert's Rules of Order, I get really upset. I'm like, there is a rule, and this is the way we're supposed to do it. Right. I went to that place, in service before, and I had to learn a lot of lessons. And one of those lessons was, I don't need to be there. I do what I can. And in the, I guess, spirit of rotation, I give other people a chance to fail. I give other people a chance to learn those lessons. And you know what? AA will go on. I do not need to be the, the AA police or anything like that. And not that I haven't been there before, but now I'm kind of like attraction,
Yeah.
So
I'll go to area assemblies, and I mean, when I first went, I didn't really quite get what was going on. But after I started learning about how the whole thing works, where the assembly elects a delegate, the delegate goes to New York, and that I could have direct input with what my delegate does in New York, that kind of made sense to me. But there's a lot of stuff that goes on in area assembly that seems like is a kind of a waste of time. a lot of committee meetings about, I don't even know what they're talking about.
I've heard Congress is kind of the same way, so I don't think we're unique in that.
No, not at all. So anyway, you guys got something coming up in your district that I thought was kind of interesting. It's about etiquette and safety in AA.
Yes.
You want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I am on that committee. I don't have anything to do with it. I'm kind of like setting up, and we do flyers, and we kind of organize, where the tables are gonna go. As far as the content, it's up to the facilitator. I know the spirit of it is the safety part is some of it's 13th stepping. When you add 12 and 1 together, you get 13. My life is unmanageable, and I like to share it with you. That's where 13th step comes from. There's that, but there's also, the lawsuit that happened in, I forget what, California, I think we were talking about, where someone got hurt or killed, and they blamed AA, and AA is not a hotbed of mental health. You know,
Right.
we are sick people trying to get well, but some of us are still sick, and
Right.
you do have to be aware of these things. Nobody likes to talk about it. You know, it's like one of those taboo subjects, but it's absolutely necessary to be aware, especially newcomers that
Yep.
will give their phone number to just anyone.
Yep.
And, you know, be surprised when they have a visitor at 4:00 in the morning that wants to
Yep.
talk recovery, you know? Now I'm not saying that we shouldn't be giving our numbers out or anything like
Right.
that, but there is an awareness that we need to talk about, and that's one of the topics that's coming up. The etiquette thing is kind of I don't know. There's like you go to the bathroom before you get to the meeting.
Yeah.
You get one.
Turn off your cell phone. Yeah.
Part of it is like things like texting. This is one of my
Yeah.
pet peeves. When you're texting in a meeting, it doesn't matter what you're doing. You could be looking up Big Book quotes on your phone. It doesn't matter. To everyone else that's sharing, you have something more important on your phone than what's
Right.
going on in the meeting. And when I share, and now this is right out of my story, I was in a meeting and I was coming off of another drug, which my synapses were firing in all different kind of crazy ways. And somebody in a meeting laughed, and they were telling a joke. I was sharing something very personal, and they kind of giggled off in the corner about a joke that they had made. Probably nothing to do with me. They were just not listening. And when they shared, I listened, and I got
Right.
so upset. I stood up and I said, I guess what I have to say doesn't fucking matter. And I grabbed my chair and I threw it at him as hard as I
Wow.
could, and then stormed out of the meeting. I was coming off of meth, so I was
Gotcha.
crazy, but I really was pissed off because I didn't get that warm welcome when I came to
Right.
AA this time. I got, okay, I don't want to be around that guy. I had the homeless smell. I was living in my Jeep, that whole kind of thing. People didn't come up and, hug me and stuff like that. So when they were doing that, they weren't giving a shit. And when
Right.
someone's sitting there in the room and they're on their phone, the only message that sends is my phone is more important than anything that you're saying. And that
Yep.
can hurt people. It can
Yeah, and
also,
you are so right about that.
it can also distract other people from hearing something that might save their life. So that's the kind of stuff that they're going to talk about. Now, that's my opinion. That's not a rule or anything, but that's
I so agree with you. And it's more important, especially if you've got a new person in the room. We've got to be so. I mean, I read this book, Joseph Nowinski. I think it's called "It Works If You Work It." And one thing that he said in that book that really made sense to me is for AA to really work for somebody, for it to more likely to work, the newcomer has to be made to feel as if he is on the inside looking out rather than on the outside looking in. And the sooner that person feels that he is part of the group, that he's accepted, the more likely he's going to be to come back and succeed in his recovery or her recovery.
That's good. I like.
So yeah, so that's why it's so important to make that newcomer feel welcome.
They absolutely. There's a caveat with that though. I remember in one of the groups I was. This is a long time ago. We were voting on whether we should say the Serenity Prayer or the Lord's Prayer at the end of the meeting, and of course I was like, oh, the Lord's Prayer is so wrapped in Catholicism and Christianity, and you don't want to scare people. And as soon as I said we don't want to scare people, my sponsee sitting across the table from me said, "Oh, we should maybe get rid of that fourth step then, huh? Because that probably scares people." And I was like, "Okay, I get it." This is we can't coddle people, but we can make it comfortable for them, especially coming in new. There's so much power in someone coming up and actually giving a shit. In a time when you don't even give a shit about yourself.
Yes.
For someone else to just come and shake your hand and say, I want you to come back tomorrow is just an amazing feeling. And when you don't get it, and I've been on both sides of this, when you don't get that, that's when judgment comes up. And that's when you start, there's a great story in the grapevine called The Home Group. I'll send it to you. It's it is about a woman who's traveling and goes to an AA meeting, and all these people are sharing about how welcoming AA was and wonderful, but she says, I wonder where those people are that made it so comfortable, because no one comes up to her. They kind of look at her, and she stands by the bulletin board and kind of stands waiting for someone to, but they don't. And she's like, I still stayed sober, and I'm grateful for you. But just know that when a newcomer comes in, she wasn't new. She had all kinds of sobriety, but she's like, I could have been a reporter with a camera in my a recorder in my pocket. I could have been a newcomer on the brink of suicide, and just someone coming up and saying hello would have made all the difference. So
it certainly does.
Yeah.
I think that's what saved my life. Was I came to AA like most of us do, at a time where, you know, my family and I had no friends. My family didn't want anything to do with me. I had all these things, problems I didn't want to talk to anybody about. I was feeling lousy about myself. And that was the one damn place where people seemed to understand me and care about me, and they let me know it.
Yep. And if they don't, go to another meeting. Because your people are out there. They may not be in that meeting, but there are people just like me in other meetings. And some of that time you have to find those people. Yep.
So yeah, I'm really interested. Now, is this this thing that you're doing in District 11 for this particular thing? Is this what you were talking about maybe putting online, or was that something else?
No, that was something else. One of the things we want to, our group particularly wants to do, is to bring technology to recovery. There's some people have technophobia, and I understand that. But there are so many tools. There are people that come to our group only because of our website, only because they found our website. There's people, we have an online meeting at intherooms.com. That's an agnostic AA meeting. And we have people from all over the world that come to that meeting and say that this is, they feel it's their home, that it's the one place that they can share and not have to worry about people knowing them. You can even put a thing over your camera, like a sticky note, and just have your voice. The technology is there. If you're traveling and you need a meeting and you have an internet connection, you can go to intherooms.com and have a meeting. And we wanted to have an agnostic presence there. Which that had a lot of challenge, I'll tell you. But
I remember when you guys were doing that.
Oh, well, what we want to do is the District 11 thing is we want to have a thing on technology, and part of it is our DCM or our DCM Vivian. She wants to reach the parts of AA that are unreachable, the people that don't come to assembly. They're out in the boonies. They're still AA groups. But they're separated from us. And what we're trying to do with this workshop is have everybody log on and see that there is great value in online meetings and using technology to enhance your recovery. Our website is off the chain. We get, I think our last hit was like 400 hits a day.
Wow.
Just people searching for atheist AA or agnostic AA, ours comes up. And it's amazing when you get a message from the internet saying, my husband's drinking and doesn't believe in God and he won't go to AA. How can we help? Or that kind of stuff is amazing. And talking about our website, our website has everything on it. If you want to start an agnostic meeting, you can do it there. In fact, we've copied our website for a group in Texas just to create a website for them. We don't mind if you steal our stuff. We have all our scripts online, all our flyers, all that, our topic sticks that we use. All of that stuff is online, and I encourage people to use that stuff.
Yep.
So, in fact,
I've seen all of that too. And your site was one of the first that I saw when I was first exploring about agnostic AA, and I remember those topic sticks.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, if we're scrounging for a topic, we have a basket of about 200 little topics on them, And somehow we always keep pulling out the same ones. But it's those little things are quirks of groups. And that's one of the things we wanted, or I wanted for our group, is to be a part of AA, but do things just a little differently. And some of it worked and some of it didn't, but some of the quirks that we have keep people coming back.
Yeah. You've kind of incorporated the in the rooms meeting with your group.
Well, we consider it our second group. Because we don't have an online meeting, doesn't have a district. What we do is 10% of the proceeds go to AA. The rest of it goes to in the rooms, and it's really piddly. And in fact, they said we're not making money off of the off of the meetings. It's so whatever people donate, it goes to 10% goes to World Services. But as far as the district goes, they are represented through District 11 in Florida. So that's kind of how.
And did you know there's actually talk, I think, up in the General Service Conference, and I don't know if it's going to be at this coming conference, but I remember reading somewhere they're talking about, or thinking about anyway, creating special districts for online meetings.
They should.
They really should.
And you know what? They have all the personalities of a regular meeting. You get to know people. You want to hear them. You want to check up on them. And people are like, oh, you don't want to replace face-to-face meetings. And they say all the time, this is a compliment to your recovery. Right. It is not your recovery. You have to go to face-to-face meetings. But to be able to sit in your underwear in a meeting and be a part of a group. There's one woman that called us from Cairo because it was the only English-speaking meeting she could get to. We have people at all hours or all over the world coming to that meeting. They don't have to drive anywhere.
Yeah.
So it's something that we want to, grow.
Yep. I like that. And I see a lot of opportunity for the internet, even just for us to kind of come together as a community and organize. I kind of have a dream of a kind of a database of agnostic AA GSRs that we can email and have them vote a certain way,
right,
for something that we want to do at the General Service Conference, that type of thing.
Right.
But I think AA kind of frowns at that type of political organizing.
Right, exactly. You don't want to open that can of worms because you might not get what you want. It's kind of nice to, just kind of make things up as they go. If we had to have everybody's input all over the world over our meeting, I think we'd drive each other.
And, it's kind of also, because we have a lot in common with being agnostic, atheist, whatever, and all that kind of stuff, we don't always get along we don't always agree on everything in our little community anyway, so.
You think? Yeah. Wow. We're people, and we have people problems too. Yeah, I get it. Well, like I said, I am very much into carrying the message, because the stuff that I got, the stuff I took from people, some of it I can't give back. And one of the best things in my recovery is I've never forgotten what AA has done for me. The person, there's and I was just talking about this in a morning meeting I went to. There's a phrase in AA that everybody hates. They say, my worst day sober is better than my best day drunk. And for a long time I was like, I had some really good times or whatever. But I think the meaning of that is I am a completely different person. My thoughts are different. My actions are different. Everything about me is different. And the person that I was had to have alcohol in order to have a good time. No matter what was going on, that same scared, depressed, horrifically tortured child or person was in that body, having the best time or whatever, but I was still in it, and I was miserable and alone and afraid, and now I'm not. So I will take being this person on a crappy day way over being that person on a fantastic day. And that is what AA gave me. It's not sobriety. Everybody stops drinking the same way. They put the plug in the jug and they don't take a drink. But the steps and the support that I've gotten and the real, I hate to use this phrase, but the plan for living that AA can give you if you know how to work it is beyond any kind of, I couldn't pay enough money to be the person I am now. I go through things in sobriety that are perfect reasons to drink. And I don't only get through them, but sometimes I even enjoy them.
Yeah.
That's what sobriety has given to me, and I have to continue to give it back. I know that's corny, but
no, it's not at all. I feel the same way. I don't think it's corny at all. I think that I love your passion for the program. That's heartening. I like it, and I agree with it.
It drives my sponsees crazy because I make them do things. But my sponsor, his favorite phrase is, "I don't know shit about shit," and I picked him as a sponsor because of that. Because I think I know all the answers, and he seems to have a wonderful life and doesn't know any of the answers. So I take my cues from him.
Yep. So to kind of wrap it up, are you planning on going out to Austin in 2016?
I'm going to try. I missed the first one. And of course, I was born in Santa Monica. I've never been back to California since I was 4. So I missed the first one. I would kick myself, but I couldn't make it. This time I'm going to hopefully plan to be there. I think it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, Santa Monica is absolutely beautiful, by the way. I've never been to Southern California until I went on that convention, and I understand why people like Southern California.
Hey, rub it in. Thanks.
But yeah, it'd be fun to see you out there in Austin. I'm going to try to make it too. For me, it's not a bad drive. I think it's like maybe a 10-hour drive or something from Kansas City. So
I want to see the people we helped with that website. I want to meet those.
Yeah,
we're doing all that stuff. It was San Antonio is where they're.
Yep.
Where they're from, and they were just, the guy that I was doing it with was such a good experience, and to see that all grow is just a neat thing.
Yep.
Oh, our I should mention our web address is omagod.org, or our mostly agnostic group of drunks.com. Both of them work.
Yep, it's a great website, and you're absolutely right. It's got a lot of good information on there. We'll have a link to that when we put the podcast out there.
Awesome.
So,
this was a great conversation. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Mikey. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much. And you have a good rest of the day.
You too.
Well, that's another episode of AA Beyond Belief, the podcast. We'll be talking to you very soon. And until then, be well.